kind of stuff makes it a little. And I see people like, let's make sure everybody's here before we start talking and that kind of thing. What is interesting is you don't have the side of things, but I have like another column, and I have to say hi everybody to like and it streams all of the chats into one spot, except for if I do a watch party. And I will do
Let me
that.
know
So
when you got confirmation.
Yep. And I think we probably already do, but I just want to make sure. And yes, sir, we do. So,
all right.
Yeah. Hi, everybody. This is Shannon from iEvolve TV. And we're back again for is this our third Sunday, Chris? Third Sunday?
Yep. Third episode.
Third episode of Exploring the Creative Cosmos with Chris Michael Moores. And so we're back. For our last episode before the new year. So we're going to take the next couple weeks off.
Yeah, it'll take a couple weeks for the holidays, and we'll come back after that and have a new perspective in the new year.
Unless we're feeling festive when we're home in Alpena, we might do that.
You never know. We might jump on for a live session or an in-person session even.
Yeah. Maybe we'll find some place where there's an internet hotspot in town or something. That might be cool, actually.
Coffee shop.
Yeah. Cabin Creek. They were rated like one of the top coffee places in Michigan. Did you hear that?
I believe it. I did not hear that, but I believe it. I love going there. It's a nice place. They always treat you well, and great local piece of the downtown area.
I love their dirty chai. I don't know. I don't know if you've ever had a dirty chai. Do you know what that is?
No, not specifically.
Some places call them chai tea lattes, but it's chai tea with a shot of espresso.
Oh,
I like to order a chai tea and give them a wink and say make it a dirty, and then they're like, "What?"
Yeah, I'm usually just passing through town, so I just get their daily house coffee so I can try out their core product.
Yeah, they have they put out some holiday coffees too, that are usually really fabulous. They're roasted coffees. You can buy them. They're great stocking stuffers.
May just do that.
Yeah. In pumpkin spice, they have a good one. I think I got it there. Tasty stuff.
Always good to have your coffee.
Right. I usually drink juice while we do this. I think it just kind of helps my throat stay. I don't know.
Last couple times I had tea, my oolong, but today I've got cosmic coffee. See,
awesome.
Scorpio mug.
Where do you get cosmic coffee?
I'm not sure where I got that from. Outer space, I think.
Oh, cosmic because you're drinking it.
Yeah. And it's got stars on it.
Gotcha. So we were going to... I'm sorry, I started to cut you off. What did you say?
Anything I do is cosmic.
There you go. I like that attitude. So we have a couple topics today, or like one big idea in the teacher world. What's the big idea today? But we were going to kick things off because you shared it's not a new piece of art, but new to me. And you shared a piece of art that we used as our invitation, that has an eye. And you were going to explain this piece of artwork that you said you drew this like 20 years ago?
Yeah, probably between 15 and 20 years ago. And when we were chatting about it and you were asking where it came from, I think myself where it came from, I didn't recall in the moment, but you guessed it perhaps reminds you of the sunrise side. And in fact, before you said that, I was remembering that this is kind of looking out of Huron and seeing the sun peek up over the shoreline on Lake. That's because that's part of my my soul is the lake and looking out over the lake and being connected to the water and the energies of the northeastern side there. So yeah, I guess the sun would be the sun coming up over the lake or over, it's that view of it. And you have the birds, the seagulls, and the eye always represents consciousness. So uh, I like to think of the universe or the nature as being conscious in its own right, and I always represent that in my art. So, yep, to be the sun coming up over the shoreline of the northeast side.
And to be honest with you, one of the things that kind of drove that home was the seagull.
Yeah, can't miss a seagull if you know what that's like.
Yeah, I think my mom was she was down at
Mhm.
the boat harbor, like having a lunch break. I don't know. I was probably in junior high or something. She was just on a lunch break, and she just drove down there to like have her lunch or whatever. And she had her window cracked in her car, and she had a peach pit or half like part partly eaten peach, and a seagull snatched it like out of her car
Oh no,
window. Yeah, little
I
flying
think
rats,
about
you know.
yeah, I know the seagulls or something else. I remember one time going, my dad, grandfather, and I were on the boat heading straight out into Lake Huron, and behind us there was this huge flock of seagulls, like wah, wah. And I was like, "Oh my God, what are they doing?" And they were looking for the fish that you churned up as you came through, so they were following you
Mhm.
in a huge flock, and it was really crazy.
It must have been something that, I mean, because that doesn't happen all the time, but there must have been something during at the time of year or where you guys were,
Yeah,
you know.
somewhere along the line, I remember that distinctly, just going, "What the heck are they doing?" They're all following us out to the lake, because you'd have to go a good 30 miles out on the lake to do the big fishing to catch the salmon and the trout. So you get so far off the shore that you couldn't see the shore anymore. And you better watch it as the fog rolled in. You better keep aware of where the heck you are.
Right. That's right. So
So,
I'm gonna blip up our topic for today.
okay,
If if you think we're done with the your picture.
we're ready.
All right. Um, I'm getting used to these little captions, which are super fun. So we're going to talk about metaphysics of history, creativity, and the soul.
Yeah.
So we had quite the lively conversation. We had to cut ourselves off about I don't know, like an hour and a half ago or so, because we're like, no, we got to save it for when we go
Yeah, we
live.
were putting the show on just between the two of us instead of saving it for the broadcast. So we better save a
So,
little bit for the live
right,
stream.
right. So we started talking about a whole lot of stuff when it comes to the metaphysics of history, and you made some really good points to start out. Just and then you cut me off. So you're
Wait,
like,
wait.
no, right. So go ahead, go. Don't let me stop you
Well,
now.
I think where we started it, when I had the idea to talk about this today, just the idea of history. I'm a big student of history. I read all about history, but one of the metaphysical angles of history is it, as you read about other individuals within a certain period of time and how they're often associated with that time and their thoughts were shaped by the time in which they lived in, the more you can see that going through history and observing it with other people, the more you realize yourself, we're just dropped into this time period with all these things happening that then shape the way we think. And if we're trying to find that original nature, we have to be beyond. That's one of the things that make, I guess, awakening in this modern era so difficult, is because there's so many distractions and so many things impressing upon us that to see our way free of it is quite a challenge. But that's one thing, if you can see historically how these individuals that we study are just a part of their time and place, you can also see a different angle on yourself in this time and place, and realize that that part of you which is shaped by the events in the time or place are not going to be your true nature, because that happens outside of the bounds of time.
I don't know what I can add to that.
Very easy.
It's just mind blowing.
Well, okay.
No, that's, I mean, I just have to chew on that for a little bit, because
Yeah,
it's so much.
another technique we can use to get perspective on ourselves, to study
Sure.
historical eras and realize that we ourselves are also passing through a historical era, albeit one where a lot is going on. We can still keep a space within ourselves that is beyond those happenings. Like
Right.
you can, sometimes I look at it like I'm a cosmic spy, or to keep my universal's perspective, you should be able to be dropped into any period of time and be able to still maintain yourself in the same manner, because that soul or that center of us is connected to the universe and outside of those happenings on the surface.
So when you study, do you feel like how does that process work for you? Can maybe describe how that works for you? I mean, it might not happen the same for everybody, but how does it work for you?
Yeah, I guess I tie it in with a big dose of meditative text as well. So if you kind of read them
Sure.
together, meditative text, it makes you approach the study of history in a different way. So you just basically, there's all the details of the happenings and what has happened and when, and all the things we normally associate with history, which is very interesting as well. But if you use it you can also use it as a tool to see, one, the progression, hopefully progression of humanity through thousands of years, instead of just focusing only on the current period of time. You see how different people believe different things in different times and places, whether it's politics or religion. I mean, they were totally they believed in their time, just the way many people are totally sure of what they believe in this time, but maybe the universal perspective is a little looser, a little more flowing, where it isn't just one snapshot of something, but it's a synergy that continues to move and flow and evolve. And maybe it's not just one thing, but it's many things in a multiplicity of displays.
So when you, I guess that's just, it's amazing. But it takes time and it takes practice, right? I mean, it's not like you're going to do, um, it, it, it takes a practice, just like any other form of meditation, right?
Yeah, many years of just soaking up information. If you can keep that inner space where everything comes and just kind of rests, then these things don't make a defining imprint on you. They go into the lexicon of things from which you can draw. So I sometimes talk about a thing called mental territory.
Mhm.
So that's why I like exploring really interesting ideas, because it opens up areas of your brain. It opens up new territory and gives you new colors and palettes from which to draw. So as an artist, when I'm making music or visual art or something, having this vast array of things to choose from gives me more to go the other direction with. So it comes in and it opens up pathways, and then when I'm inspired, it comes back out, and those can be colors from which to draw.
I think we're experiencing a little bit of a delay in our stream. Are you hearing me okay, Chris?
Yeah, I hear you good. It looks
Okay.
okay at my end.
Okay. All right. Do you feel when you're doing that, that when you draw or you're creating music, um, and you're playing music of that time period? Yes.
Uh, well, music of music of different time periods
Okay.
can kind of fertilize that which I'm creating. So, like if I'm writing a song, for instance, it might sound a little bit like the Beatles, or like the Beatles did this.
Okay.
They would use instruments in a Baroque manner. That's one of the particular sounds of the Beatles, is they use instrumental interludes that add color to it. So, if you've listened to a lot of folk, you've listened to a lot of jazz, you've listened to a lot of classical, then when you're writing something, any one of those things can be brought into the process. And if you have enough influence, then you can kind of forge into new territory because you have enough experience to kind of push it a little bit. But you're always going to be influenced by that which you've taken in. That's why listening is such a big part of developing as a musician. You can read about it all you want, but you're going to really gain the experience from listening to great players and soaking up what they've done. And then that opens those possibilities up within yourself. And then when you go to create or play, you draw from that which has come before. There's no need to be an island unto yourself in the music world, because we're all kind of contributing to a much grander landscape that's built over many, many years.
It's so funny. Every time I hear art and the word Baroque, it just makes me chuckle because when my sister was taking pottery, I think it was pottery at, I guess it must be because this is why the joke came about, at ACC, and
I know where you're
she,
going.
you know where I'm going with this,
I think so.
and her piece broke, and my mom glued it together, and they called it Baroque art.
Yeah.
I'm not.
Or if it, or if it ain't Baroque, don't fix it.
Right. So yeah, anytime I hear that, it just makes me laugh, and I picture the Baroque art that my mom fixed for my sister. Yeah, just
Yeah.
funny.
Well, since we're talking about the Baroque, we should kind of elaborate in case somebody doesn't
I'm not sure
know.
that I know, to be honest with you. I'm not sure that I really know because
Well,
we skewed the definition so poorly at this point. Like I don't know.
yeah. Well, the Baroque was an era of art which loosely takes place between this about 1600 to 1750. Most of what we think of as Baroque, it happened towards the end of it. Like J.S. Bach is the big composer that defines the Baroque. It's a highly ornamental style. You can see this also in the visual art and in the architecture from the
When
time. It's very ornate and
when you say
elaborate.
JS, do you mean Johann Sebastian Bach?
Yeah, the one and only. Yeah.
That's different than Sebastian Bach, who sang for Skid Row, right?
Wow. Yeah.
Okay,
Although he's
just to be
cool too.
clear.
He's not Baroque. No, but
Well, he
he's
might be
more like,
now.
yeah, who knows? With how little we make on the streaming services, we all us musicians are broke. There are
I mean,
no gigs this
that would be
year.
spelled. Sorry, that would be spelled Broke, not Baroque. Correct?
Right. So, and also J.S. Bach, as opposed to his sons like C.P.E. Bach and Wilhelm Friedman Bach and Johann Christian Bach. So I always find it interesting to look at family members of the great composers, because actually Bach's sons wrote some pretty interesting music as well. I mean, a whole lot of it. And it's really quite good. We just don't hear about it that much.
I've never, um, I just kind of stuck with Johann. I didn't know that he.
Well,
I didn't
Johann
know.
Christian Bach sounds a lot like Mozart before Mozart. Mozart's quite influenced by one of Bach's sons, and C.P.E. Bach. There was a period of time where the Renaissance, where the Baroque extended a little bit. Like there's two things that happened. The Baroque kind of went to a super Baroque called Rococo, which is extremely ornamental and very elaborate and interesting textures, which C.P. Bach wrote. But then the other Bach's son started the classical era, and that's where things got stripped back to a simpler form, much more basic. Yum, dum, 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 da 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 dum. Exactly what you expect is the classical era, and then that's where eventually Mozart and Haydn took over for old man Bach.
Say the name of that style again. Rococo.
Rococo, yeah.
That's cool. Sounds like it
Yeah,
should be like, something from like the Roaring '20s or something, or something. But I mean, you said it was elaborate,
yeah. So maybe
ostentatious.
like 1760s or something like that. But
I wonder what was going on in the 1760s. What was going on? Lots of flamboyant things. Other than that,
well, the American and French revolutions were going on. The beginnings of that's pretty key to that time period.
isn't that right around the? Wasn't there an Enlightenment time period
Yeah.
then?
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. So this is kind of where we were going with the whole metaphysics of history, right?
Yeah, I mean, it can be very provocative for many things. Sometimes we think, well, a modern history, us now, we know more than anybody's ever known. We know everything. But really, when you look back in different eras, you can find gems of wisdom that we've forgotten about or lost track of, or, they being less muddled up, perhaps sometimes other people had a more direct connection to nature and certain wisdom traditions than we do now.
Yeah,
It's just something to explore and give yourself free range to. And if you think about history that way, you can learn many things that are directly applicable to meditation and your own soul progression. Like, why wouldn't you soak up the whole experience of humanity to add it to the picture of yourself that you're developing?
right. Absolutely. It leads to a lot of things. We talked a little bit about this. Well, a lot about this actually. I'm like downplaying it, but we talked about how we use these types of things to almost like develop the what it must be like to live in that time, and how it must how it must have felt, or so we almost can kind of, even though it might feel kind of fanciful, like fantasy-ish, we're almost in using our own creativity to heal in many regards, right?
Yeah, I think it's quite interesting. I like historical dramas, and like many things, as you say, we don't know exactly what happened, but if we can kind of tune into the spirit of it and get an idea of the aesthetic, then we are able to uh, learn much about people in that time. And it's fun, it's very interesting to, and I think we were touching upon this, even to extend it to your own genealogy. If
Yeah.
you look into your own individual pathway to being alive now and seeing different people that were great grandfathers or whatever,
Yeah.
the connection, and think of time periods they inhabited, and that very directly, that was a piece of what made you in the present time.
Absolutely. I my I didn't do all the work, thank goodness. But um, I can go into my account on familysearch.org and I can go back on one side of the family. Well, actually, you don't have just one side. You figure that out really
Many,
quick.
many, many. Yeah.
Yeah, there's so many sides. And
Double,
it goes
double, double.
yeah, to like 600s. And so, yeah, like I could literally know the names of the people that lived during that time. And that's amazing. And like where they lived, what city, I mean, they're all European, obviously. But, and that's wild. I mean, that's mind boggling to me. In
Yeah,
that I'm just learning this in my 40s.
Yeah,
It's
it
cool.
is. It adds a missing piece, I think. I first went on ancestry benders. I call them, like, where I'd spend the whole weekend going, oh wow, I can't believe this. I can't believe it. Because I could feel it kind of transforming my energy as I was soaking up this information. And it's also interesting to consider different qualities of yourself that you know yourself as, and where did they come from. This doesn't seem like my mom or dad or something. Maybe this came from somewhere else. Maybe it came from a great grandmother or something. Or you can kind of find these connections to various aspects of yourself and the people that have gone before. So yeah, it's another fascinating way to consider history for sure.
Yeah. Well, your last name has an incredible history.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
swamplands, like in Sherlock Holmes, the Hound of the Baskervilles, where the hound is out there somewhere on the moors.
Yeah.
That's me,
Well, just
Swamp,
think of all the
Mr. Swamp,
vegetation.
Mr. Swamp.
Well, I heard it, but there's people though. There's a group of people with that last name though too, or that title, right? Not just
Yeah,
a state.
that's a different thing.
Right.
Yeah, that was people who inhabited Spain for a period of
Oh,
time.
okay. Oh, not the same.
Nope, they're actually spelled the same, but two different little divides in history, two different little rivers.
Oh,
And
okay.
they're actually unrelated. But
Okay.
perfect example of, though, just even your name holds secrets if you explore the
Mhm.
path and go down the rabbit holes.
Yep. And there are some trains of thought that people believe that, or some people believe that you in your higher self and your parents and their higher self. I mean, like you almost pick your own name. There's some people that believe
Well,
that.
I think
I
I
mean,
think
that
you
goes
were
off woo woo. Woo woo alert.
no. I mean, I think you were talking about this with Jess on one of your other shows, like that incarnation process. I think that was his show that you guys
Oh
were talking
yeah. Yeah.
about. And I remember thinking, well, I kind of think it is that way. I have one piece of art I drew that I imagine yourself just kind of standing there, getting ready to dive into this vortex of incarnation. It's like, all right, am I going to do it? You're at the edge of a diving board, 100 feet high or 1,000 feet high or whatever it looks like. You're about ready to enter into the time portal and to get condensed into the body. And you're like, am I going to do it this time? Okay, well, I
Yeah.
really, it amounts to, you get, I think in the East, they say the desire brings you back. You want to experience the pleasures of life again, or you're really attached to this, or something is undone. And there's something that constantly keeps drawing us back in. And, I happen to believe that for the most part, that we can come back or come back through and have gone through any number of incarnations. And I think it works different ways. I think some people, even, I think this is called the transmigration of souls in the Hindu tradition, where some come up through the animals, like
Hmm.
the the beings that are born of the earth gain. I think they even go so far as to say they go from like rocks to trees to smaller animals to the larger sentient beings to the human. I think that's possible, but I don't think that's what everybody does. I think some of us come from other places, maybe other star systems, to come into the earth and learn the lessons of the earth. I think there's entities in the astral realms of all sorts that can kind of jump. I think many different things can take a human body, but I think once we take the human body, we get really hooked on it and the experiences that we have. And I think the more we master ourselves and our emotions and our mental state and everything, the more we can construct the next scenario. So if we're just pulled by desire, we kind of just jump into the next thing that happens to be there. Whereas if we have a little more self mastery, we can construct a scenario. I mean, once you jump into the time portal, all bets are off. You can't control it. You don't know what's happened, but you can kind of set up parameters, I think, that maybe make it more or less likely for certain things to happen.
I turned my microphone off. I'm sorry.
Oh,
I was moving around and I didn't realize my microphone was still off. Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. Like, and I think sometimes that it might not be the same for every soul. Like it just simply isn't. And, um, I think there's like Justin and I talked about this too, as you're reflecting that, perhaps the soul doesn't need to have that lesson of being a rock. Like I can't imagine that actually happens, but and but I mean,
kind of
maybe,
saying,
I don't know.
I'm a
I'm
rock.
sorry.
I'm a rock.
You
Just start taking rock consciousness.
That's like a whole nother topic, though. Actually, that you're saying.
Rock!
I want to rock.
That's
Like,
a
no, really, I
different.
want to rock.
That's
Like,
a
let's go to a
cooler rock.
concert.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think we
Um,
all want to rock.
I listened to. I'm gonna rabbit hole if I say that, but I'll just say it briefly because now everybody's like, what is she gonna say? The Little Shaman. Have you ever listened to The Little Shaman on YouTube? She's fabulous.
Okay.
And she talks about her like specialty is cluster B personality disorders, and she talks about like the gray rock method and like really how to like really steer yourself clear of basically cluster B personality disorder. It's like narcissists and borderline personality disorder people that like seem to be very attracted to those individuals who maybe a little bit more light worker ish type people, like just to kind of put a big umbrella over everybody. And she's just very like very down to earth, very like this is how it is. And she talks about the gray rock method, and the gray rock method is like just you can't really piss off a gray rock. They're just no emotion.
Oh,
There's
yeah.
you just no affect, no response. Just they're just
Yeah,
a rock.
I like that.
No, nothing.
Right.
You can't feed off a rock. You can't squeeze blood out of a rock. You can't get nothing. You know. So that's that's where
Yeah, that's another way of talking about this stillness at the center. Yeah, I like that rock method.
gray rock method.
Mhm.
Yes, very effective. So, but now I did that to us, and don't remember where we were.
Well, nice place to kind of follow up on a little bit of what you were saying, and an extension of what I was saying is when we get connected to that soul presence, we have to heal that within us which has been lost along the way. So, I think of it as soul retrieval. Some people think of it as different ways, but maybe somewhere along the line in your life when you didn't have a chance to express yourself. I mean, that's one problem. We don't always get to, the outside world doesn't always let us express what in the moment we feel. And if that reflection was harsh in any way when we were younger or vulnerable anywhere along the way, it doesn't
Right.
have to be young, but if we're vulnerable and
Yeah.
something we wanted to say or that we cared about got crushed somewhere along the way, then there's a wound in us where that energy is like frozen in space, and it doesn't just automatically become unfrozen. We have to kind of go back. So we go scan back through our existence and try to find these times and places where we were hurt and maybe lost a part of ourselves. And oftentimes we look to the outside for some kind of validation, but we can actually give ourselves, as we cultivate wisdom and understanding, we can go back to self in those times and places and realize what occurred and bring our own healing and validation to those times. And oftentimes when we recover we might have to shed some tears. Like sometimes I say we cry it back into us.
Yeah.
You tune into that. Sometimes we don't want to connect to that feeling because it's not a pleasant one. There's hurt or pain there, so we avoid it. But if we can open up, it isn't, we don't even have to necessarily go in search of it. We just simply have to open the door that we consciously hold closed, and these things will bubble up in time, and we have to be ready for that to move with it when it comes up, and then give it its voice. So we can, like I say, we could cry it back in, because I've had before where I've connected to pain of my past, cried tears of the pain, but then those same tears became tears of joy. And the energy that was lost in space got reintegrated and has now returned home and become a part of my synergy. And as we find right now we might have energy scattered here and there and this time, and that can go even beyond this life into past journey. We have lessons that we're meant to learn in this smaller scope, as we were talking about when we laid the groundwork with the historical context of seeing ourselves in a place and a time. But then there's also broader soul lessons that take place over a longer journey, broader context, like something like humility or kindness, or these subtler, higher, very sensitive, delicate perceptions that we need to be able to create the space to host them within us.
It becomes very cleansing. It's I think it's one of the techniques that, or part of the technique that of reframing. It's a shamanic technique, and one of the techniques that psychology kind of tries to mimic in some ways, that originated in the shamanic culture or techniques that they use. So it cleanses it and reframes it and brings it back and integrates it back into it could be inner child and healing. So you talked about soul retrieval, and I think when we first talked about it, I said, I actually think I have a different word for that, and I couldn't remember exactly what it is. And it is soul retrieval, but I think I think of it more as like, and I think if the longer that you talk to other people that are kind of like-minded in these ways, you find out people reference things a little bit different, but you're really talking about the same things. Just kind of, it's like having a different vernacular. It's like, calling some sliding glass door a door wall versus a sliding. It's the same thing. It's a sliding glass door. It's the same thing. I would call that soul pieces, collecting your soul pieces. That's how I would refer to that. But it's you're retrieving those soul pieces. The same thing, right? Going back. But one of the things that we do because our heart chakra is so because you think of it as part of your heart chakra, a soul. In some aspects, how that works, I'm not sure that anybody has really been able to map that. It's not really a mappable type thing. Is we connect, and I think I talked about this in another podcast. Is we connect with our tentacles of our heart chakra, and we pass those out just as humans, because it's what we do, and sometimes we leave them behind and we don't retrieve them back, at any age.
Yeah,
so
that's why it's a good practice to every once in a while call your energy back. So that's why seated meditation is quite good, where you try to find some stillness and you can breathe. You imagine yourself breathing yourself back in from all over the place, because we do get very scattered with all that we encounter. And anytime we hold on to something, that's why, like, say, anger, we learned that there's the way of looking at, well, that angry, but while you're holding the anger, you're poisoning your own energy, because you're holding it out there and you're holding that feeling and you're wearing yourself out. And maybe that person had ticked you off or something, but your own well-being is always your own responsibility. That gives you back kind of the power to do something. If you blame everybody else and everything else for your state of mind, even if one of the difficult tricks is the mind justifies, well, I had to do that because XYZ, or that person wronged me, so I'm right to be angry and hateful about something. But that mental justification is a real trick. It's really hard because it wants to prove yourself correct. So I say beware if you are proving yourself correct, because that maybe nothing is that cut and dry, and oftentimes that process locks us into a disempowering position.
Right, because I think that every emotion has value, is what you're saying, but when it becomes poison is when you're not using it for the value that it represents. And so you might get angry, but it's representing something that still belongs to you. And so what is it? You got to use that for that teachable moment for yourself. That's not somebody else's job to determine that for you. But when it becomes poisonous to you and affecting your life pervasively, that's when it becomes poison. So it's not for long-term holding on of anger so that it becomes a chronic illness like, diabetes and IBS and other things, right? And locked into your cellular memory. We don't want that. But when it is used because sometimes anger is protective. Sometimes anger moves you out of the space that you need to be in. Sometimes that creates change that's necessary to put you in a situation of expansion. So that's a motivating thing. But when it becomes poison, that's no longer serving you, but doesn't mean that you hold on to it and then use it as a axe or a bat or whatever for everybody else that you come in contact with, because then it's not used as something that can teach you to expand you as a sentient being. Then it's poison. So and then it will obviously poison you, and then that moves us into how do we release that cellular memory, right? We're already talking about that. So
that's a good point of clarification, because it's not a judgment on the feelings in any way.
Right.
And sometimes there's a time and the place for those feelings, and they can, you said it quite nicely, move you out of situations or be a source of power to disrupt something that might be holding you in place. But if it no longer serves you and you're stuck in a rut on it, it can become a very tricky scenario that then puts an unfortunate shade on you. It becomes a filter which you see other things that occur to you through, and perhaps it's something that needs to be let go in order to free that energy up to have its natural full perspective. So yeah,
Sure.
quite nicely said.
Oh, thanks, Chris.
Mm.
Well, I think that's part of what we were talking about earlier. Having that. We weren't going to get into this, but I'll speak to it just briefly. Having some cellular memory of knowing, like women, earning the right to vote, and looking at history, and thinking, gosh, what was that like, that women had to fight for that, and thinking about those types of things, and speaking up for themselves, and that type of thing, and so using those things as and embracing them and bringing them into my own, and transmuting that information that you sometimes have to get mad enough to move you out of a situation that's unsafe. And women are warriors too, and sometimes that means standing in protection of your children, and protection of yourself. And though maybe I haven't been in those exact situations, Mama Bear comes out sometimes in all different rainbows of colors, and in protection of your friends and your family and your children. And so sometimes that anger can look, or maybe it just fires you up a little bit, but it moves you out of that. But to hold on to it is when it becomes poison, like you were saying. So I think I'm kind of trying to tie it all in here. I hope I'm doing a good job.
Yeah, you are. And that
Okay,
brings
good.
us to the next thing we wanted to add into the mix is creativity as a means to give an outlet to some of that energy. So things that are frozen into place can become reinvigorated and enlivened through expressing it. Whether you care to journal your experience, or you want to have a little catharsis to get the energy moving again, like why did this happen to me? I mean, that's quite an
Do you
effective
do that?
technique. I mean, yeah, I have done that before when
Sure.
when I'm
I think we all have, probably.
ah, it's better to give expression to that than it is to hold it down and be afraid of that energy. So you can pass it on through, and like I said, oftentimes that expression of becomes
Yeah.
once the energy kind of finds its way back home, and is the transformation occurs, the poisonous energy becomes joy or celebration. Or some of my biggest meditative realizations have been through the transmuting of that poisonous energy into glorious energy. And I think that's really one of the aspects of what I think of as the Holy Spirit. Is it's that moving, loving, invigorating, creative energy. To me, the Holy Spirit and creativity are one and the same force, same energy. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we are absolutely sentient beings. And so when that we are moved to, how do I say this? Move to um relieve ourselves of that. I mean, as long as we're not like creating, I guess, in the Buddhist term, it would be creating more dharma, or more karma, by creating more damage to somebody. As long as we're doing it in an environment in which we're releasing it, yeah, it's the Holy Spirit helping us move it out of our a poisonous state. So yeah, we're releasing that cellular. We might have memory, but releasing it from a cellular memory, and because our cells are mostly water. Our water actually holds vibration, and holds a vibrational. I guess you'll have to help me with that. There is some like actual science that I just listened to
Like
it
an
not long
energy
ago.
signature. Yeah.
Thank you. Energy signature. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, you can see they do that. They play sounds over water and they form different crystalline structures. And if
Yeah.
it's an angry
And
sound, it gets broken up. And if it's a beautiful sound, forms a very beautiful pattern, a very elaborate, nice
and
pattern.
we are made of that. We
Yeah.
are made of that. So like if we play lovely song, lovely, that's why there's certain tones, right, Chris?
Yeah.
When things are
I'm with
are
you.
broadcasted over certain frequencies, that we are uplifted. And if they're broadcasted over not so great frequencies, we're not.
Yeah. There's a whole incredible rabbit hole to dive down with that, with
Yeah. Well,
sounds and the
maybe
impact of sounds.
maybe we'll pin that for another time.
Yeah, yeah, we can get into that. And I mean, that's why in the old days there was different modes of music and different intervals, and certain intervals were to be avoided because they didn't want to disrupt the people with strange intervals. Oh, oh no, the tritone! I'm going to go crazy. But a nice
But
da dee da dee da dee. A fifth feels good where a tritone is disruptive, or do 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 do. Minor second, there's a reason that evokes a little angst.
but didn't Prince and there's several of them. Prince and Jimi Hendrix and John Lennon. I will have to, there. I have it somewhere. There was a whole like handful of musicians that tune their guitars to a certain frequency.
Well, there's the whole like nowadays we tune to A440, but some say 432 is the universal tone. So we're actually a little bit lower. Some say tunes you into the universe a little bit more. So somewhere along the line we gravitated towards a little different intonation, and maybe that's a conspiracy in its own right.
I've heard something along those lines, and also something along the radio frequency that's broadcasted as well,
Yeah.
along like
Well,
actual radio waves.
sound is very powerful, very influential, and it
Yeah,
can be used for good or for not so good.
yeah,
So
and
that's what
and and I actually and I think people don't. I mean, the Schumann's resonance. We didn't plan on this. Are you okay with talking about Schumann's resonance?
that's kind of your thing, but go for it. I'd
Okay.
like to.
Okay. Well, and I actually don't know a soup like on a scientific level. I don't know a ton of it, except that a ton about it, except that we do measure it all over the world, and that it is the Earth's ohm. It's what the yogis, when we hear om,
Yeah.
they were observing it, or they were hearing it.
Yeah, I've heard
Mhm.
it. I hear it.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I hear
Oh.
it. I hear it all the time. I hear the
Oh.
yeah, I hear the fluctuations all the time, and so we do measure it on a scientific level. Like there's scientists that are studying it all the time, and it is piped into. I think I may have talked about this on other podcasts, like into submarines, because we literally need to have that resonance in our cells, or we die. I mean, there. So we are a energetic being, and when people say things like, "Oh, everything is energy," like, yeah, we truly are. Yeah, that's not a joke. So, or that's not just some kind of crazy conspiracy theory. Like, it truly is accurate. So that's all I was going to say.
Yeah. No, I think that's very true. Our very cells vibrate, and so does the sound of music. So, and I would view that the resonance of the earth as music, or
Mhm.
there's all kinds of vibratory forces coming in. That goes to the sun. There, you better believe there's some vibration coming from the sun, and all kinds of things. So important
But
to expose yourself to sounds that are healing and soothing sometimes to really, that's a powerful tool that perhaps in some cases is underutilized.
yeah, there's there's all kinds of like the delta waves, the alpha waves, the gamma waves that you can listen to in meditation. They're available like on YouTube, Spotify, um, Amazon Prime. You can just listen to those. You can listen to them, just play them throughout your house anytime. Those are great.
Yeah.
I just use them as background so that I don't hear frequency constantly. I hear it all the time. So it's great for me to kind of not drown it out, but yeah, drowned it out. Um, so we also want to talk about um, creativity inspired by nature, which we kind of talked about a little bit, which all of those things are. But we should also mention that creativity can be things like moving your body, painting, music.
Yeah,
Yeah.
anything that you feel expresses yourself. I mean, if you are in tune with nature while you're taking a walk in the park, that's a creative process. Anything that makes the connection between you and whether you think of it as the earth or the universe or God or anything that puts you in a prayerful mood is definitely a creative process, or you wouldn't be feeling that uplifting quality. I mean, and we call it prayer, we call it meditation. Again, it's different ways to express the same energy, but anything that is uplifting to do is creativity for you.
Mm-hmm. So, Chris, how would you inspire somebody to not get derailed with criticism, whether it be from others or from themselves?
Well, it's definitely a tricky one because the world doesn't always love new expression. They like to hear the same old, same old. If you go out to a gig and you play all new songs, everyone's going to like, ah, even if they're the greatest songs of them all, they want to hear, you know, the same
Right.
thing. Panama. They want to hear whatever they're used to and familiar. But at one time, those were new as well. So
Right.
you have to be very strong in yourself and your feeling that you're doing what is your rightful thing to do, your natural expression. You have to put it out there and kind of protect the space, and again, kind of validating yourself in the process, that having faith in what you're doing, because you will likely encounter some criticism, but that's more about the other person than it is about what you're doing. Every great artist or work of art, or even casual artists, we all have to start somewhere with something. There has to be a beginning. And if it doesn't begin, it can't flourish or flower into its full realization. It's all an experiment. It's all trial and error, and there is no wrong answer in creativity. So never let somebody else tell you it's bad or wrong. It's all just a step on the journey.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, there's people that I have done, or I'm gonna say that I've done all kinds of art. I guess I have. I guess, but there's people that oh, I liked it better this way, or I liked it better that way, or I liked it better. Well, that wasn't my original vision.
Yeah, that's the
So,
peanut gallery. They always come out, and I look at someone like Paul McCartney, who I think writes heavenly music. I could listen to him sing the phone book and be at peace. But if you look at how his music has been criticized, even, which I look at that because it gives me strength in my own journey. Like, well, if they criticize Paul, then the criticism of me doesn't hurt as bad because Paul's pretty darn great. And when he tried something new, like his first album after the Beatles, for instance, McCartney 1, they thought it was crap because it was all stripped down and it was
mhm.
much more simplified. And it was not well received by the critics. But now, many years later, here 50 years later, he's about ready to put out McCartney 3, and people look back at that first album as like the beginning of the whole indie genre, where you make your own stuff at home, or you make,
Mm-hmm.
a much simpler, straightforward record without all the bells and whistles from the studio. So now in time, everybody sees it differently. So
Mm-hmm.
I think anytime I put something out there, whether it's a work of art or music or something, there's always somebody going to chatter and say something else about it. It's almost
Yep.
baked in the cake, as they say. So you got to just let it kind of glide off your shoulders and realize that's part of the process. And they just don't get it because it's new, it's something different. So there's
Mm-hmm.
not a context to place it in, which is also the beauty of it, and that which makes it very positive to others, is it can become a changing force. That energy of joy that you put into that artwork, if received by even one person, can have a positive change. So for all the people that are critical, if you connect with one person or make a difference in one person's life, you've really done something, and it's worth the whole effort and journey. And furthermore, you're serving the purpose of what you're here to do. You're
Mm-hmm.
sharing your heart, you're sharing your
Right.
soul. The universe will tend to support that work, because that's how the universal laws work.
But that one person that might just be you. Um, and we talked about this before. I think last podcast that you and I connected this past summer while I was painting a mural on my fence, because it was like, what am I going to do this summer? Like, there's like, it's not even really summer, but I've got this humongous blank canvas, and my neighbors are replacing part of their fence, and my neighbors are fabulous. So I'm going to paint it. And because they would have had like this new fence and then this old fence, and so I just painted it, and I painted a mural on it, and it was just a joy to me. Like, I just totally, it was absolute bliss. I lost myself in that.
Yeah, feels great when you're in that space. And
Mhm.
that's how I feel in the recording studio. I can get lost for hours just in that space of laying down tracks, and it feels awesome to be in that creative space, because in the act of creating, you're connected to creativity, which is that force of love.
Mm-hmm. One of the panels, because they're kind of like separated by panels, how like a privacy fence, because they have a pool on the other side, so they like have to buy city ordinance. And I personally would love it if their back was open, because I mean, I love my neighbors, but they have to have that. So one of the panels is just a giant ohm. It's kind of ornate and gold and pretty colors and stuff, but it's just an ohm. That's all it is. It just flows.
Well, Om pretty much says it all, really.
It sure does. And I remember people asking, like, what is that symbol? Like, they didn't know. And it's like, that is like such an old symbol. It very, very much is. Um, it's so funny because my sister and I were like, beating around, like, maybe we should get a tattoo of that. And we thought about getting it behind our ears, because where else would you put an elm, right? Because you're gonna. But we were so afraid that, like, it would be kind of more of like a neck tattoo. Like, that would just be weird.
Well,
We never did it. Obviously, we never did it. We just kind of threw around the idea. Something small, tiny. We didn't do it.
well, you never know what the future holds.
Who knows? Yeah, my mother-in-law got a tattoo when she was like 70 or something.
Cool. Yeah, you get them when the time is right or the circumstances right. So,
Yep. So who knows what, you know, I guess, youthfulness, or if that's defined as getting a tattoo is something you do in your youth. I don't know. She did it when
yeah,
she was 70.
that's awesome. Keeping life interesting.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. My mom got one. Gosh, she probably was 60. She
Yeah,
got
get old.
on her foot. She got. I guess she said it was so painful. She
Really?
got yeah, across the top side of her foot. She got ahimsa written in Sanskrit. And right before Thanksgiving, I thought for sure we were going to have a tofu turkey. I'm like, what is going on? I thought it was funny.
Still changing and growing,
Yep,
moving,
absolutely.
trying new things. So,
Yes,
well, I think that's a good place. History, we covered the soul, we covered being creative, we covered some things
we
today. And
did. We sure did. Nice
I
job,
want to
Chris.
thank you for having me on again and for creating this nice platform for
Thank
not
you.
just myself, but all the people that come on here. It's a nice thing to be a part of and to see the energies moving and all the
Yeah,
other great guests that you have on and interesting topics being bantied about and a non-judgmental space. It's quite nice.
it
So
is.
thank
It is very nice because I think we all have we all have a place in this world and we're all important and we all have a voice. And no voice is more important than the next. And I think they all need to be honored.
you. Yep,
So
we're
thank
all
you so much for
important.
being here.
Mm-hmm.
I'm
You're
sorry,
welcome.
what?
Said everyone's an important piece of the puzzle for
That's
sure.
right. That's right. So until I'll see you next year. Well, hopefully I see you before then, but we'll see all of our friends out there maybe in the internet land. It's like an extra realm.
Yeah, a whole world unto itself. See
Yeah.
you on the other side. Happy New Year.
Of the other side of the moon.
Yeah, for
Okay,
sure.
sure.
Why not?
Or maybe, but I'll maybe see you back home.
Okay, be cool.
Yeah, we'll be like live from Cabin Creek Coffee, having a
Right
dirty
here
chai.
on.
Mm. Have a great night.
Okay,
Happy
bye.
Sunday.
You too.
Bye.